While working the night shift, I found a locked room at my workplace and learned about secret experiments on HMNS. I don't know what to do and whether I can go to the police. I never expected my boring-ass security job to lead to this. I work or worked, depending on how this goes, the night shift at a mid-sized warehouse for a company I won't name yet. Think big-name e-commerce, but not quite Amazon. My job was simple: monitor the cameras, patrol every couple of hours, make sure nobody was stealing laptops or forklifts or whatever. Most nights, nothing happened. I'd sip my energy drink, listen to true crime podcasts, and stare at the monitors, half hoping to see something weird just to break the monotony. But last Tuesday, I got way more than I bargained for. The warehouse has a lower level, mostly used for storage. It's one long hallway with a few locked doors, mostly housing old inventory or broken equipment. It's never been interesting until I noticed something off. Around 2:30 a.m., I was doing my usual round when I heard a hum, a low, mechanical sound, coming from one of the doors at the far end. That was weird, because as far as I knew, nobody used that room. Hell, I didn't even have a key for it. I pressed my ear to the metal. Definitely a hum. Maybe some kind of machinery? I knocked lightly, half expecting silence. Instead, I heard a thud, like something hitting the door from the inside. I took a step back. My first instinct was hell no, but curiosity, and the fact that I had another 5 hours left in my shift, got the better of me. I pulled out my radio. "Hey Mike, you copy?" Mike's my supervisor. Grumpy old guy. Hates being woken up for non-issues. His response was exactly what I expected. "What?" "There's a weird noise coming from the basement. Room 34. You know what's in there?" Silence. Then, "Leave it alone." Now that was weird. Mike doesn't give a shit about anything. If I told him someone was breakdancing naked in the main lobby, he'd probably just tell me to let them finish their set. But this? His voice had an edge to it. "So, don't check it out?" I asked, just to be clear. "Just do your rounds. Stay out of that hallway." Then he ended the call. That should have been my cue to walk away. But of course I didn't, because if I had, I wouldn't have seen what was inside room 34. After a few minutes of standing there, debating whether I valued my job or my curiosity more, I pulled out my keycard and swiped it against the panel. Red light. Denied. I tried again, even knowing it was pointless. Still locked. That's when I noticed something else strange. The keypad below the scanner was new. Newer than everything else in this basement. Anyway, this place was all dusty vents and exposed pipes. But that keypad? It was sleek. No dust, no grime. Someone used it regularly. I should have walked away, I know. But my brain was firing on all cylinders now. Why was a locked room in a barely used basement getting new tech? I pulled out my phone and snapped a picture of the keypad, thinking maybe I could look up the model later. As soon as the flash went off, something inside the room made a noise. Not a thud this time. Not machinery. A groan. I froze. It was muffled, like someone trying to talk through a gag. Every single hair on my body stood up. I backed up, almost tripping over my own feet. That was a person. Someone was inside that room. And then, right as I turned to leave, the keypad beeped. I spun back around, expecting, I don't even know, but the red light was gone. The panel was green. The door unlocked. I wasn't sure whether I was breathing. The hallway was dead silent except for the faint hum from the room. My brain was running 100 miles per hour, but one thing kept repeating. I didn't enter a code. I don't know what possessed me to do it, but I reached out and pushed the door open. The first thing that hit me was the smell. Chemical, sterile, but off. Like someone was trying to cover up something rotting. The room was small, dimly lit by a single fluorescent tube overhead. And there was a chair in the center. A guy was strapped to it. At first, I thought he was dead. His head was slumped forward, arms limp. He was covered in sweat, wearing nothing but a hospital gown. There were wires stuck to his arms, trailing to a machine behind him that gave off a slow, steady beep. Then his head jerked up. He looked right at me. His eyes were wrong. Pupils too wide, like he'd been drugged out of his mind. His mouth opened, and I expected him to beg for help. But what came out instead was a strangled, garbled mess of syllables. I took a step closer, trying to process what I was looking at. There were marks on his skin, needle punctures, bruises, something that looked like burns. His wrists were strapped to the chair with thick restraints. And then he twitched. His entire body jerked so hard I heard the restraints creak. His mouth opened wider, like he was trying to scream, but no sound came out. That's when I saw the second machine behind him. It wasn't a heart monitor. I don't know what it was. It had wires running into his arms, his neck, even his temple. The screen was filled with numbers, constantly shifting. But the thing that made my stomach drop was the label at the top. Test subject 042. I was backing up before I even realized it. I needed to get out. I needed to pretend I never saw this. Then the guy moved again. This time he managed to get actual words out. Don't let them see you. And that's when the room's security alarm went off. A blaring siren filled the hallway, so loud it rattled my skull. My first instinct was to run, but before I even turned, I heard footsteps. Heavy boots, multiple people, getting closer. They were coming. I had about 5 seconds to make a decision. I didn't have time to think. The moment the alarm started blaring, I knew I was screwed. The hallway outside was empty for now, but those footsteps were getting closer. Multiple people. Heavy boots, fast-paced, no hesitation. They weren't just checking out the alarm, they were coming straight for me. I had maybe 5 seconds to react. Running was my first instinct, but the layout of the basement was already working against me. There was only one way in and out, and I could hear them coming from that direction. The only other option. Hiding. I whipped my head around, scanning the room for anything that could get me out of sight. The guy in the chair, 042, was still convulsing, his eyes rolling back into his head. The wires in his skin twitched as the machine behind him beeped erratically. There was no time to help him, even if I wanted to. That's when I saw it. In the far left corner, partially hidden behind a metal cabinet, was a door. No handle. Just a plain, gray panel flush with the wall. A maintenance hatch? A storage closet? I had no idea. I just knew it was my only shot. I sprinted toward it. No time to be gentle. I pressed my palm flat against the surface and pushed. It didn't budge. Shit. The footsteps were almost at the door now. Desperation took over. I ran my fingers along the edges, searching for a latch, a button, anything that could get me inside. That's when I felt it. A small indentation near my waist. Without thinking, I pressed down. The panel slid open just enough for me to squeeze through. I threw myself inside, pulling the door shut behind me. Total darkness. I held my breath. The door to room 34 burst open. Voices. At least 3 different ones. What the fuck happened? Subjects crashing. Reset the machine. How the hell did this door get opened? Someone moved closer. I could hear the click-click of a flashlight scanning the room. Check the footage. We need to see who the hell was down here. I stayed perfectly still, pressing my body against the wall of whatever tiny, suffocating space I just shoved myself into. The air was thick, hot, stale, and laced with something chemical. My eyes were adjusting slowly, but all I could make out were vague shapes. A faint drip, drip, drip echoed from somewhere deeper inside. Then footsteps, not from the room outside, from inside the space I was in. I nearly stopped breathing altogether. It was subtle, a slow, deliberate shuffle against the concrete floor. My pulse slammed against my ribs as I strained my ears. The guys outside were still talking, still barking orders, completely unaware of whatever was in here with me. The air smelled wrong. And then, just ahead in the darkness, something moved. A shadow, tall, thin, impossibly still. I couldn't see its eyes, but I felt them, watching me. I had 2 choices. Stay perfectly still and hope to God it didn't move closer. Or bolt back into room 34 and deal with whatever was waiting out there instead. I had about 2 seconds to decide. I had 2 choices. Neither of them were good. My body wanted to run. Every instinct was screaming at me to turn and move, but my brain kept repeating one thing over and over. If you run, it will chase you. So I stayed still. The air in the cramped space was thick, heavy with something damp and metallic. I could barely make out shapes, but that thing, the tall, thin silhouette just a few feet ahead of me, hadn't moved. It was just watching. Outside, the voices were still going. Subject is crashing. Restart the sequence. No, he's seizing. Do not restart it yet. Someone needs to check the damn footage. If there's an intruder. They were distracted. That was the only advantage I had. I swallowed hard, barely daring to breathe, and took the smallest step backward. The floor felt slick under my boot. My fingers pressed against the wall, brushed against something wet. I didn't check what it was. I already knew. Behind me, the faint opening in the door panel was my only exit. If I could just slide through without making a noise. Drip, The sound was so quiet, so insignificant. A single drop of liquid hitting the floor. But whatever was in here heard it. His head snapped in my direction. The motion was unnatural. Too fast, too sharp, like a puppet yanked by invisible strings. I felt my lungs lock up. I was about to pass away. I knew it. And then, from the room outside, "Did you hear that?" One of the guards. Another voice. "What?" "Shoo. I heard something. Over there." Shit. They were looking toward the panel. My panel. I had seconds before one of them checked inside. If I stayed here, I'd get caught. If I ran, the thing in the dark would move. I didn't hear footsteps. No shift of weight. It just wasn't where it had been a second ago. It was closer. I fucking ran. I didn't think. I just shoved backward through the panel, practically falling into room 34. The guards whipped around at the sound. "Hey!" I was already sprinting. The basement hallway was a blur of cold concrete and flickering fluorescent lights. I didn't hear the guards behind me. I was too focused on running. Running past the room, past the locked doors, toward the only staircase that led back to the main floor. But the second I reached it, BZZT. The emergency lockdown alarm blared through the speakers. Shutters coming down. I looked up just in time to see the reinforced metal gate slam over the stairwell exit, trapping me inside. The guards were already on me. Boots pounding against the floor. Shouts echoing down the hall. "Stop! On the ground now!" There was no way out. No way up. But there was one place left to go. The hallway stretched ahead of me. Dimly lit, lined with doors, most of which I'd never paid attention to before. Now, they were my only shot. I bolted toward the closest one. The keypad flashed red, locked. The next one also locked. Footsteps getting closer. I was running out of time. Then, at the very end of the hall, an open door. I didn't think. I launched myself through it, slamming it shut behind me. Darkness swallowed me whole. But I wasn't alone. Something else was in here with me. And this time it was breathing. I'll update if I make it out. I don't know how I made it out. 1 second. I was in total darkness. Chest heaving. Every nerve in my body screaming that something else was in there with me. The next, the emergency lights flickered on, and whatever was in the room moved. Fast. I didn't stay to find out what it was. I scrambled backward, practically throwing myself against the opposite wall, reaching for anything. Any kind of weapon, any kind of exit. My fingers brushed against something metal. A handle. I didn't hesitate. I yanked it down. The door swung open, and I tumbled into another hallway, barely catching myself before I hit the ground. The second I looked up, I knew I was somewhere I wasn't supposed to be. It was a lab. Rows of medical equipment. Tubes running along the walls, some of them filled with something thick and red. A row of empty hospital beds, restraints still fastened to the sides. The whole place smelled like antiseptic, but underneath that was something worse. Something rotting. The whole room was empty. No doctors, no scientists, just abandoned workstations and humming monitors filled with data I couldn't begin to understand. I had maybe 10 seconds before the guards caught up. I ran. Through the lab, past rows of equipment, searching for any way out. Finally, at the far end of the room, I found it. Another door. A regular one this time. No keypads, no security panels. I threw it open and found myself in an empty maintenance corridor. Somewhere above me, the emergency alarm stopped. I was out. I didn't stop moving. I climbed the stairs, 2 at a time, and burst into the main floor. The warehouse was completely normal. Forklifts sat in their designated zones. Crates were stacked neatly, untouched. The security office door was still slightly ajar from when I'd left it earlier. It was like nothing had happened. I stumbled inside, barely able to breathe. My hands were still shaking when I checked the cameras. The basement hallway? Empty. Room 34's door? Closed. If it weren't for the lingering ache in my legs and the sweat soaking through my shirt, I would have thought I imagined the whole thing. Then, at exactly 3:55 a.m., someone knocked on the security office door. I turned slowly. 3 men stood outside. Not warehouse employees. Not anyone I recognized. One of them leaned into the intercom. "Security." I pressed the button. "Yeah. Did you see anything strange tonight?" My pulse slammed against my ribs. I forced myself to breathe normally, to sound normal. "No. I went out for a smoke." "What's this about?" A pause. Then the man nodded. "Just a system error. Let us know if you notice anything unusual." I nodded, pretending to be disinterested. After a few more seconds, they left. I watched them disappear down the hall, heart hammering. I don't know who they were. I don't know what the hell I saw in that basement. But I do know one thing, this wasn't an accident. Somewhere, in the cracks of modern industry, in places where no one looks too hard, secret experiments are happening. And last night I got too close. I haven't quit yet. I need to know more. I'll update if I make it through another shift. Edit. To those asking, no, I haven't gone to the police. Without proof, I just sound like a lunatic. And something tells me the people running this wouldn't appreciate the attention. Not trying to end up as a workplace accident. Edit 2. Yes. I backed up the security footage before my shift ended. Haven't watched it yet. Honestly, I'm kind of scared of what I'll see. Edit 3. Holy, this blew up. Thanks for all the awards. And to those saying I should quit immediately, trust me, I want to. But if I leave now, I'll never get answers. I need to know what the hell I walked into.